There were once two sparrows who made their home beneath the eaves of an old chapel. Every morning, before the sun had fully climbed the sky, the little birds would flutter down the highest branch and sing. Their songs blended together like threads of warmth in the cool dawn air. The villagers often paused on their way to work, listening to the sweet voices that seemed to promise that love was simple if you only dared to share it. They were young sparrows, barely past the downy softness of youth, but already their hearts belonged to each other. Together, they gathered twigs and bits of string to build a nest so snug that the wind itself could only sigh and pass by. Every evening, after the last rays of sunlight slipped behind the hills, they would tuck their heads together and fall asleep to the steady beat of the rain on the chapel roof. But on the day the storm came, the sky was darker than it had ever been. Clouds towered like mountains over the chapel, and the wind no longer sighed. It roared. When the first raindrops struck, they felt cold and heavy as stones. The sparrows huddled in their nest, wings pressed tight against each other. "Stay here," the male sparrow chirped softly. His voice shook, though he tried to keep it steady. "I'll find something to cover us." She looked at him, her dark eyes shining with fear. The wind tore at the edges of their home, and for one brief moment, she pressed her beak to his. It was the closest thing to a promise they had ever shared. Before he could say anything more, a sudden gust lifted the nest. It twisted, then broke apart, scattering twigs and soft feathers into the storm. When he tried to return, she was gone. Rain pounded the chapel roof like 1,000 drums. He called her name over and over, but the wind swallowed his voice. He searched the eaves and the ledges. He flew again and again into the darkness until his wings felt as heavy as wet cloth. But she did not answer. At dawn, the storm at last began to fade. Clouds thinned to shreds of gray, and a pale light returned to the sky. He perched on the edge of the chapel, soaked to the bone. The place that had once been their home was nothing but splinters. All around him, the world looked the same, but it felt hollow. Then, drifting down from the broken gutter, he saw a single small feather. It landed near his feet, still glistening with rain. He knew it was hers. He pressed his beak to it, wishing he had told her how much she meant. How every morning song was really for her. How every twig he carried had felt lighter because she was waiting. But he had never said the words. He had only assumed there would be time. That evening, when the villagers passed by, they heard a different song. It was not bright or full of hope. It was the quiet cry of a heart learning what regret truly means. The sparrow sang into the empty dusk, his voice trembling like the last leaf on a branch. And in that small, broken song, there was a promise. That if she could hear him, somewhere beyond the rain, she would know he had always loved her, and that next time, he would never wait so long to say it. Does everyone receive the love they give to their partner? To find that answer, you can watch the video on the left side of your screen. A silent goodbye. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone you love. Don't wait for the storm. Tell them how much they mean to you today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us all what really matters. Thank you, and take care.